I want to talk more about last night's event and also some of the larger implications here. Not just who Bradley Manning is or what he did, but what he represents. I'm joined by Jessalyn Radak, National Security and Human Rights for the Government Accountability Project. Jessalyn, we saw you there in the piece. I saw you at the event yesterday. How did it go?
I thought it went really well. I don't know how much money was raised by the event. It was a fundraiser. But I do know that there's a generous donor who is willing to match dollar for dollar any contributions made. And I think there were incredibly powerful speeches by Thomas Drake and by Chris Hedges and by David House.
And by Jessalyn Radak as well.
Thank you. I did the best I could. It's very hard because he is an incredibly significant whistleblower and arguably one of the most important ones of the past century. Even Daniel Ellsberg, the patriarch of whistleblowers, says that about Bradley Manning.
Ellsberg, of course, leaked the Pentagon Papers to the New York Times and other publications. Let's talk about Bradley Manning and what's next. Of course, these funds are needed. Bradley Manning has an attorney, David Coombs. These funds are needed to continue to support him. He has been, as we said, behind bars for 862 days, I think. He still has not gone to trial. What's going on here?
Well, his attorneys have actually recently filed a motion about his right to a speedy trial that he's entitled to under the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and also under Article 10 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That is one motion. We have an upcoming hearing on Article 13 regarding allegations about torture. So there are a number of things coming up for him. But again, David Coombs is an excellent attorney, but the fees are running very high in these cases. With my Espionage Act, clients were told that their defense can cost between $1 million and $3 million.
Wow.
So even if you're found innocent, you don't get that money back, and you've been put through financial hell as well as personal hell for telling the truth.
I want to sort of broaden this, Jessalyn, and talk for a moment. A lot of times when we talk about Bradley Manning, we also talk about Julian Assange, the co-founder of WikiLeaks. He has, of course, been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for the last several months. He's been granted asylum in Ecuador, but is wanted for questioning sexual allegations in Sweden. So all this time, Julian Assange has been saying, feel free to come and question me here. I don't want to go to Sweden for a number of reasons. Number one, because I'm worried that they will then send me to the United States, where Attorney General Holder has already said there's criminal investigation going on. But also, and this was surprising to a lot of people, he spoke out, Julian Assange spoke out against conditions, somewhat oppressive conditions, for pre-trial detention prisoners in Sweden. So I want to talk about this new example that's out. We know that Gottfried Swartholm, the co-founder of Pirate Bay, is in Sweden. He's been refused any access to newspapers or television. He's totally forbidden from having guests, and he's not officially been charged. So let's talk a little bit about this and how this could potentially relate to Assange.
Yeah, I think this case, while it is completely unrelated to WikiLeaks, underlines all the reasons why Assange was granted asylum. Basically, he has a valid fear of political persecution, and it also highlights all the problems with the Swedish system in terms of unusual secrecy in their pre-trial judicial process, the ability to hold accused people incommunicado, the ability to hold people without charge for a very long period of time, and there's no guarantee of a public trial. And it also highlights the whole extradition issue with Sweden, because Mr. Svartholm was in, I think he was in Cambodia, and he was extradited to Sweden. And that is precisely the concern that Julian Assange has, that Britain will promptly extradite him to Sweden, which will promptly extradite him to the US. And both countries have specifically refused to give any guarantee that they will not do that.
Right, that would make it a whole lot easier if they were able to make that guarantee. Let's talk also, a few minutes ago I was talking about the legislation. Congress came back for a special session, passed through pretty quickly the Whistleblower Protection Act, or a version of it, and there were several aspects in here, but I do want to highlight a few of them. Basically, the legislation clarifies that whistleblowers are protected for challenging the consequences of government policy decisions. It establishes explicit whistleblower protections for TSA employees. It makes it easier to discipline those responsible for illegal retaliation against the whistleblowers. But Jesselyn, one thing missing from this House version of the bill that was included in the Senate version of the bill is workers from the intelligence community. Talk a little bit about this.
Yes, well, that's the gaping hole and always has been, but the gaping hole is that there is no protection for national security and intelligence whistleblowers, who are arguably the ones you would most want to hear from, and significantly are the ones who are currently being prosecuted under the Espionage Act. People like Bradley Manning in the military. We have 2 CIA workers, John Kiriakou and Jeff Sterling, Tom Drake, who is an NSA employee whose clip you ran, Stephen Kim, Shemai Leibowitz. So the people who most need protection are, again, completely left out. And while I applaud the House for doing this, what really needs to happen is, number one, that this will go to the Senate for final action, where it has always been killed. Last time it died of a secret hold in the Senate placed on it. So getting it through the House is progress, but we need the Senate to approve it. And also, it would be good if the Senate would even think about doing something, anything, that would give a modicum of protection to people in the national security and intelligence arenas in our country.
Yeah, certainly one step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes it seems. Jesselyn Radak, Director of National Security and Human Rights for the Government Accountability Project. Thanks as always.
Thank you.